All right, let's get it. Okay, so day or not day two, part two of knowing yourself and your core values. Just recapping last week, we went through the four different core values. It was really cool to see what all of you guys were and kind of mapping that out together, and really going over, the characteristics of each core value. So you're either a builder, so you have two scores: builder, merchant, innovator, and banker. Okay, so mapping out each characteristic, going over the positive and then the negative traits. What I'm going to kind of rock through today, and then I think based on where we leave off today, next week we'll wrap it up with any questions that you guys have, or we'll just go into something different. But today I'm gonna go into the second part of it, and I'm gonna actually go over some things that hope they're like more thought provoking to get you guys thinking in the right state of mind, to get you guys thinking with a certain level of discernment and understanding. And actually, I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to say this really quickly. I was reading in sidetrack, everybody watching the video. I'm reading this book right now. I just started it yesterday. It's called Unshakable by Tony Robbins. If you don't have it, if you've never heard of it, um, you don't have to get it right now, but maybe write in your notes for future. I've read it. I've read parts of it before, but I never actually finished the book. Um, so I was like, what a great time to, take advantage of it. Alex actually recommended it for me. But he said something in the book. He was like, it's so imperative, it's so important that in your lifespan, especially right now, a lot of us on this call, like, we're under 30, maybe we're right at that 30 mark, a little over 30. We have, considerably considering the lifespan, we have time. Okay. And he said it was like really important that we understand and learn how to make money in good times and in bad times. And I think we're doing that right now. We're learning skill sets, not just trading and investing, but on this call, right, building relationships, understanding the psychology and the behaviors behind why people do things. And so learning those critical skill sets so that you can thrive, not just survive, not just, be treading water, but really thrive in downturns, in bad market cycles that I think we're experiencing right now. And I wanted to just give you this from what he said. It's not about predicting the market. And I started to catch myself kind of doing that, where I was trying to predict where's, how low can Ethereum go? How low can Bitcoin go? And you just kind of get wrapped around this idea of what could be. And it's nice to know, like, having some insight of where the market could go, based on maybe your strategy or what you hear from the educators in their zones and what they're looking for, and kind of rooting your foundation in that with some research. But at the end of the day, what he was saying is like, it's not about, like, professionals that thrive in these types of markets. It's not about predicting the market. It's about focusing and executing on what you can control. That's it. So I was thinking about it. I was like, you're really disciplined in your trading, and you're really disciplined with building this business when it comes to prospecting, following up, things like that. Um, but something that you've been doing for me personally with my portfolio is, and I talked about this a little bit with some of the AZ squad on Tuesday this past week, is I tend to just kind of like go off of my plan just because price goes to a certain whatever. And I started to realize this, and he said this in the book. This is such a game of waiting. It's a patience game, and we hear that so many times, but I don't think I really understand and fully appreciate it until I'm in the moment experiencing it. And sometimes even aftermath, when maybe when I've made mistakes. So I just wanted to give you guys that right now. Like, what I'm doing is I'm just stacking cash. I'm putting little bits, nibbling into the market, because, like, a little bit more than I usually would, but I'm also kind of just waiting because we're there's so much kind of uncertainty right now, and there's so many things that could actually happen moving over the next few months. So I'm just kind of, waiting on the sidelines for my next move, and I'm doubling down, tripling down on plugging in. Like, I probably watched two, maybe three go lives a day. And it's not like I'm just trying to bounce around from everybody. It's like I'm watching the same one over again. It's understanding what they're saying, and really focusing on what I can control and limiting the noise, limiting the distractions, getting off of this thing when it comes to social media. and what other people have to say. That was another thing he said in the book. Most people you don't need to listen to. Like, you don't need to listen to most people when it comes to like where you're going. Um, a lot of times we just buy into the noise. And then the other thing I'm doing is following my plan and realizing that in this economy, in the world that we're going in, that we're living in and moving into, the person that can adapt, the person that can pivot, the person that can bounce back the fastest is going to thrive, is going to be able to move forward. And so really, like, not just like taking that in, yeah, Abby, that's, I hear you, but like understanding what that means. What does it mean when you're in that moment where you're frustrated, you're resistant to the challenges and the BS that's going on in your life? How quickly do you bounce back? How quickly do you respond positively, productively to your situations? And the last thing is what Kurt Cobain said on one of his sessions this past week and his boot camp, which is phenomenal. Like, you've got to watch that if you have the ability to, which I think everybody on this call does. It's probably going to save your ass. Like, it was very good, very well thought out and planned. But he said something on the call. He said, when you do your work with enthusiasm. That's the difference. That's the game changer. And he said something that we need to be focusing on right now is reinventing ourselves. A lot of the stuff that we've been doing in the past, myself included, just isn't getting me the results that I'm looking for. Plus, it's not going to get me the results I'm looking for, anyways, moving into this new economy where things are just different. So I wanted to give you guys that. We're going to get into the call officially right now, but I really wanted to just give you guys some perspective because a lot of people are going to get hurt these next few months because they're just not paying attention and they think that they're invincible or they're getting complacent. And this is not the time to do any of that. This is the time to double down and focus and literally look at the masses and do the absolute freaking opposite. Okay. So builder, merchant, innovator, banker. Let's dive in. So I'm going to get into just the latter part of this. This probably will go a little bit more quickly, hopefully. But I'm going to start from the top. Okay. So builders, I'm going to go through contribution. Okay. The best way that each core value contributes, your learning style, the way that you build your self-esteem, which is essentially like the reward in your life, what you're looking forward to. I'm going to talk about your biggest fear and your like defense mechanisms. And then the biggest thing that will help you break through, whatever you're in, whatever you're going through. I'm going to talk about that. Okay. What you can maximize. So for a builder, the biggest thing for, as far as your core value, we talked about this last week, is you want innately, subconsciously, results, empower, taking action, short bursts of action. Okay. And when it comes to your level of contribution, like how you can contribute at the highest level is when you are taking action and when you're in a team oriented environment. When you inspire the team, you move the team forward, you get people like moving around you. When you are purposely charged with a short-term mission. Okay. When you are builders, when you are purposely charged with a short-term mission, we talked about this last week. Like, you guys are very like short-term centric. When you have a short-term mission to achieve a result for the greater good. So when like the mission at hand and your role and the value that you can bring to the table and taking that massive urgent action, this is how you can create some sort of contribution to the team or the people around you. Okay. And I think the biggest thing that he had talked about when I was listening to Peter, the guy who kind of gave me this information, is your biggest advantage is when you're focused and you have that like sense of urgency, that drive to get things done. And that's really, at the end of the day, what drives you to the results that you're looking for. But I think even bigger than that, and this is for everybody, and I've said this multiple times over, and maybe if it hasn't clicked for you yet, maybe on the 10th time, the 20th time that I say it, it will. As far as understanding, you have got to figure out like what results mean to you. Because if you don't know, if you are not crystal clear, you're going to bounce around from what this person says, this person says, this person does, this person shouts from the rooftops, and it doesn't align with you spiritually. It doesn't make sense for you mentally and emotionally. It's not rooted deeply in you where it gets, it gets you moving, and you kind of find yourself in this rut and you get complacent. Okay, so your biggest contribution to a team oriented environment as a builder, okay, maybe it's your first score, your second score, you combine with your, with the other, is your ability to inspire those around you when you are purposely charged with a mission to achieve a greater good, to achieve a higher level result that affects everybody. Okay, and half the time, if you're just taking action, and you're showing signs of progress in production, that will get people around you to move. That will get people around you to be like, maybe I should be doing that, and to look inward. Okay. As far as learning style, super simple. You make decisions and you go do the work. That's it. Super simple. You make decisions and you go do. You go take action. You go execute. You go run the play. That's why if you're a builder and you are strongly connected to why you do what you do, and um, like what results mean to you, if you have a play, you'll run it. I know some of you guys are builders on this call, and I've seen you when you run the play. And I think a lot of the time it has to do with the fact, it's probably a few things, but you are very focused on the mission, and you have a clear idea of the result that you're looking for and what it means to you. And so you're very good at making decisions, cutting things off, cutting the fat that doesn't matter, and just going to work. Okay. As far as like building your self esteem, this is really wrapped around having a sense of power, okay, and a positive influence. That's how you gain that self esteem for yourself, um, and continue to build on that when you have a sense of power and positive influence. Okay, and this kind of all ties together when you understand yourself, when you understand, your characteristics, what puts you in a positive state where you're the most effective, person that you can be. Or what puts you in a negative state. You can kind of, be aware of these things and understand, when you are in certain states of being, and how to move yourself to, let's say, a positive state where you are the most effective, where you can contribute at the highest level, when you are your happiest, you're most fulfilled. And that's where you can increase and have that high self-esteem. Okay. The other thing is your biggest fear. So this is basically your biggest fear is whatever is opposite. So it's basically the opposite of your core values. So in this case, your biggest fear as a builder is not having power and not having results, not having power or sense of control, and not having results. Okay. When you don't have results, you revert to working harder. And there's so much more that I could say about this. I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Um, in the next week's call, maybe you guys can have some questions about some of these things and we can like discuss it in more detail. But the biggest thing is when you don't, as a builder, when you don't have results, your like your solution in your head is to work harder, is to take more action, to try to build your self-esteem and your sense of importance. Um, but that action doesn't really have like a purpose. So without like purposeful, meaningful action, your results won't produce a positive reward. Okay. And then that negative cycle will continue. So that's why it's really important that you identify what does success mean to you? What do results mean to you? Otherwise, when you do things and you're not seeing the results that you want in a negative state, when you have these big fears, you're just going to take more action, but it's not going to have any meaning or connection to it. And what you're actually doing, you're not doing it to contribute. You're doing it to build your self-esteem and sense of importance because you feel like you don't have value anymore. And this can go either way, like positively or negatively. And there's obviously spectrums, scales 1 to 10. If you're in negative mode, you don't immediately go to a 10, right? You may start out as a 1, 2, and then it progressively gets worse. If you stay in that and you're not aware to break out of it. But I'm telling you guys this so when you're here, you can bounce back a lot faster. You can recognize this is where I'm at and I need to bounce back. Okay. And you know how to. And then so the last couple things for a builder, the biggest breakthrough that you could have is to get back to that higher self-esteem and be able to contribute and work at your most effective possible capacity, is to just take action. But you need to have, and I would obviously combine that with purposeful action. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, because that's the short-term mission. What's the mission? What are we doing? Where are we going? And you have that sense of urgency because you have that connection to why you're doing whatever it is. Okay. And then the last thing I meant to tell you guys is the self defense mechanism. What you'll do, builders tend have a tendency of what is the word? I didn't even write it down. Sorry. Oh, they intimidate. So yourself, like your defense mechanism, and obviously there's scales to it. It's not like, hardcore, I'm going to intimidate you. But when you are in a position where you feel like you don't have value, or you're just like at that negative, you're in that negative state, that immature state, your response is to defend yourself. And what you will do to defend yourself is have like intimidation tactics. So I'm not going to go into it on this call, but I'm sure if you think about it, you probably could think about when you maybe were in that mode. Okay. I've seen leaders that are builders, and I just kind of have an idea that they're a builder, because I don't know if they took the test, but I kind of have started to see, just based on personal, observation. I'm like, yeah, that person's a builder based on how they lead when they aren't seeing the results that they want, when the mission is not being fulfilled, when the team's not on track. There's intimidation. They make you feel bad. Okay. Whatever. So, all right, that's a builder. We are going to move on to merchant. And I have my screen up, guys. That's why I'm looking at some of this and I'm bouncing back to you guys. So if you have questions, you want to type anything in the chat, go for it. But that's builder. Okay. You have that as your core value, number one. Number two, write that down, keep that in mind, and know how you can bounce back. That's the biggest thing. The whole goal of this is how you can bounce back from a negative state to a positive state. Okay. And being the most effective that you can possibly be. So the second core value is a merchant. Okay. Your core value is love and relationships, which that's a lot of us on this call, including myself. Okay. So your contribution, okay, your ability to serve, is really comes down to a few things. Rallying, number one is rallying the team. Okay. If you have merchants around you, if you are a merchant, I want you to write this down. You contribute, like you will feel the most fulfilled. Trust me, I'm a merchant. And when I'm in this state, like I am at like the highest peak of Abby. Okay. When I am rallying other people to come together, rallying the team. Okay. Inspiring people with your enthusiasm, with your passion. If you are showing up and you normally, when you get excited about something, or when you are connected to something that's meaningful to you, you tend to have a higher level of passion and enthusiasm. Show that. Okay. When you're doing things, because when you do that, it's going to inspire other people to go inward and pull out whatever's on their heart, whatever is best for them, and in that moment. Okay. You have the ability to build and cast a vision. Okay. And obviously, like, that kind of grows as you do it more. You need to work on that. But when you do, and you are clear on the mission itself, and you are clear on the vision, you have the ability to cast that vision that brings people together. So I want you to think about, like, your ability is really to bring people together. Okay. Rallying each other together towards a greater cause. Okay. Nurturing other people's core values. Some of these, like, you probably maybe do well naturally more than others, but at the end of the day, we're bringing people together. We are essentially, in a way, the glue. Okay. We inspire people through our passion and our enthusiasm. We're able to, this is just a couple other things. Sorry, merchant or everybody else. I wrote a lot because I am a merchant. So I'm just going to give you guys this. But something that we can tend to do really well is gain trust from other people. It says really quickly, depends, but I would say really quickly. Yeah. Building strong relationships, because we're so focused on allowing people to feel understood and make them feel heard. So that's why we're able to build trust and build stronger relationships, because our whole core value is about people. It's about relationships and love. Okay. We have the ability to position ourselves and other people, so that they connect with the right people, with each other. So if we have a group of people in a room, 20 people, 15 people, 10 people, 5 people, we have the ability to like kind of bring everybody together and feel connected, or like there's a greater cause that we're moving towards based on our ability to connect, you know, with people. I'm repeating myself, but you guys get my point, okay? And make people feel understood, open up, and be vulnerable. And sometimes a lot of people can refer to us as like being the light in the room because of our enthusiasm, because of our passion, because of our um, our state of being at that time. Okay, so rallying the team, that's the biggest thing as our contribution. Our learning style is to talk and listen, talk it out and listen. When as soon as I heard this, I was like, yeah, that's me. Half the time, like I'm talking to Alex and I'm literally understanding what I'm trying to do and say as I'm saying it out loud. And maybe you don't have a significant other or somebody you can talk it out to, in person. Talk it out loud to yourself, because half the time I'm doing the dishes or I'm showering or I'm going on my walk and I'm talking out loud to myself. Okay. Or I'm talking to myself, and being able to listen. Okay. Your self esteem is at its highest and can grow when you feel heard, when you feel appreciated, when you feel loved. Okay. When you feel connected with other people. When you feel, I think the biggest one was when you feel connected and loved, by and with other people. And I think the thing about that is, it can be looked at as like a negative thing. Well, it's like, well, what if people don't like you, or what if, you're in a situation where, people aren't accepting of you or whatever? Are you going to just base your whole self-esteem off of that? That's the part about knowing yourself and knowing how to get yourself back in a positive state, because you're probably in that state because you're immature, you're negative right now. And I'm not going to go into that right now on the call. You can go back to your notes and we can, watch the YouTube video and things like that. But the biggest thing is like understanding yourself and knowing how to get yourself out of that negative state back to the positive state. Okay. When you feel loved, when you feel connected with people, your biggest fear is basically the opposite. It's not being loved or liked by others. If your vision or your relationship with somebody or the information, that maybe you're sharing, your vision, okay, is rejected, we tend to take that personally. I know I do. And that's something that I'm definitely working on. And it's not like you won't, it's just like, it's not like you maybe won't ever like get over it. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you'll be able to bounce back a lot faster. That's the goal. Okay. So maximize your breakthrough, build relationships. You will have your biggest breakthroughs if this is like your score one, score two, whatever, when you are building relationships, when you are connecting with people on purpose, when you're bringing people together. Okay. And then the last thing is your defense mechanism is to manipulate. So when you are in a negative state, when when things aren't going your way, when you don't feel, like people care, or, you don't feel connected with the right relationships in your life or whatever, even with your team, that's when things can turn a downward move. And some of the, our defense mechanism is to manipulate. And obviously there's scales to these things. And you can maybe think about times where you try to do certain things in a situation. I'm not trying to be super, oh my God, everybody on the team does this if they're, a merchant, and no, like there's levels to it. But the biggest thing is knowing how to get yourself back to that positive state. Okay. So that is a merchant. We're going to get into the innovator. I'm going to kind of move quickly here, actually. Okay. Innovator, your core value is wisdom, wisdom and compassion. Okay. Wisdom and compassion. And some of the, all right, I'm going to try to do this the best I can because I actually deleted some of my notes. Okay, we're going to try to rock through this. So the the innovator. Okay, so we talked about last week how the innovator, your core value is wisdom. Okay, so it's in discernment. You're able to see things as they are and make a decision without like a bias. And I think that was something that somebody was saying. I think it was Tony Robbins. I know he talks about it in the book, but somebody else said it previously, whereas like you have to be able to do this no matter who you are, like, or delegate it out so they can show you. But innovators are really good about this. They're really good when they get into their positive state about seeing things the way that they are, it's kind of like that bird's eye view, like taking yourself out of the situation and seeing things with no ego, no pride, no emotion for what they really are. Okay. And so your ability to contribute, like your level of servanthood to those around you, to the team, to whatever, is never giving up in finding a solution. So it's your ability to figure out the next answer, figure out a solution to the problem, whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. You're always observing. That's the learning style. You're always observing and you're always solving problems. Okay. And one thing about innovators is you have stamina. You don't give up. You keep going. You figure it out. So if you're an innovator and that's maybe your first score or your second score, leverage that with whatever your other score is, because it will help you persevere. It will help you continue to keep moving forward when you have that strong like connection and meaning to why you're doing what you're doing. All these go back to that, why you're doing what you're doing. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, if you don't have that strong reason, if you aren't clear on what success and results mean to you and the mission ahead, where you're going, like you're going to be in that negative state because you don't feel valued. You don't feel a sense of importance. So innovator, your contribution to the team is never quitting. Like you are showing up to find an answer. You're showing up to find a solution. Okay. And your learning style is to observe and solve to observe and solve problems. So when you're in a room, I feel like I have something in my voice. When you're in a room and maybe it's like, I don't know, like in like the AZ meetups that we have sometimes, like if you have like a strong innovator core value, half the time, like you're not really the one that's talking, maybe per se, you could be, especially if you've got, builder merchant in you or whatever. But half the time you're just sitting back and you're just listening, you're just observing what's going on, what's the scenario, and you're looking for a solution, you're looking for that next step that you can give to people. Okay. And the way that you build your self-esteem is by problem solving. It's by figuring out answers that actually matter. So if your answers don't matter, like you could be problem solving, but if your answers like don't make sense or they don't matter and people don't value them, like then you're like, and they're not valued in that situation. If you aren't mature, if you aren't in a positive state or know how to get yourself to a positive state, you'll move to a negative state pretty quickly. Okay. So when you're problem solving, innovators on this call, when you are in that mode of problem solving, okay, that is when you're building your self-esteem. That is when you're in like your zone. Okay. Biggest fear is when it's the opposite. So it's the opposite of what you value. It's where you may seem foolish or you think that you seem like a fool. Okay. And that's because you feel like your solution or your answer isn't valued. So it's kind of the same thing as like lowering your self-esteem. When you feel like your self-esteem is lowering, it's because you don't feel adequate. You don't feel like you're providing the answers or the responses necessary to move the ball forward, to move the needle forward. So when you're in a group setting, your ability to solve those problems and provide a solution, not just quickly, but matter of fact, like this is the next step that we need to do. Like you're confident in what you're saying. It's not even like necessarily like you have the facts to back it up. Maybe you do. Bankers, that's you all the way. But you have that understanding. So that's like the difference between wisdom and knowledge, because the banker core value is justice and knowledge. Somebody was asking me this the other day, what's the difference between wisdom and knowledge? Well, wisdom is it's discernment. It's your ability to see things as they are. It has to do with experience. And a lot of times it's not like yes, maybe you have a lot of experience, but you take like you're really good about taking the experiences that you've had and being able to use that as discernment for what to do next. Where a lot of times when you're in that positive state, you can learn from your mistakes quickly to find a solution. Whereas most people, they don't think like that. Okay. And you have wisdom because you have understanding. You're not just like learning things, you're learning to understand, to break new levels of awareness. Okay. So your ability to break through, or have a breakthrough, is when you are thinking things through, when you're being rational and logical and not being emotional, when you're basing things off of intelligence, okay, which is, if you're an innovator in this market right now, you're probably like maybe sitting back and observing waiting for the markets. Alex is an innovator. So she'll watch me just pour money into the markets when maybe I shouldn't have done that. And she's just like stacking her cash, waiting for the best opportunity. She's an innovator first. And I'm like, you need to tell me not to do this. I'm just kidding. But that's just an example. Okay. And then so their defense mechanism is to interrogate. Yeah, I think it's, yeah. So your defense mechanism, if you're an innovator, is to interrogate. So when you don't feel adequate, when you don't feel like, you're providing the right solution or problem solving or whatever, you don't feel like you're valued, that's what you will naturally do, or you'll start to do and you won't even know it. Interrogate. Well, why? I'm just giving you an example. Well, why not this? Why not that? That's just an example. That's probably like really dramatic or negative, but just giving you guys like, maybe an idea. Okay. You could probably think about times of when you have, you interrogate as an innovator. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on, guys. I'm gonna move into the last part and we can, wrap up this call. Type of three, if you guys are moving and grooving with me, if you're getting, getting a sense of understanding and clarity of like, okay, piecing things together, I kind of understand, a little bit more about, how I've been acting or who I am and how I can continue to be better and move forward. Cool. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. All right. So banker, last one here, core value is justice and knowledge. Okay. So your ability to contribute at the highest level is going to depend ultimately on your ability to conserve resources. So when you're in a team setting, you have the best, like when you can conserve your resources, when you can not just provide like you gathering information, because we talked about that, your characteristics in positive state is like gathering in information, being able to track and measure things. That's like when you can bring that to the table, you can contribute highly to the team. Okay. So a lot of times when you see like big businesses or companies or things like that, they will have bankers on their teams who have, the spreadsheets or all the information about, all the data about something. And, when you guys can start to see how you work together with other people, you can start to see how this can be really powerful. If you bring the data, the facts, the information to an innovator who's problem solving, and you combine that together, you can have a massive solution with backed facts and data to, to show you the next steps in the group. I'm just giving you all an example. Okay. But your ability to do that, to conserve resources, can allow the team, can allow yourself, can allow the people around you to have stability. Okay. So I think if you want to write that word down, stability and longevity, when you do that, when you can show people that we have like basically taking the resources that we have, because you guys heard the saying, Tony Robbins actually says this too. It's not about, having all the resources. It's about being fill in the blank, resourceful. Okay. That's what bankers do best. They can take the information, the resources that they have, and they're very resourceful with that information, with the tools and the things that they have around them, and they know how to conserve their resources so that the group or the mission or the setting that they're in can last longer, can have some sort of stability. Okay. And next week, maybe we can go into like examples of how we can apply that inside of the team or inside of your organization or inside of your day-to-day life. Okay. When you're talking with people or whatever. Your learning style, bankers, is to read and to analyze. Okay. Whether it's a situation or, you're in conversation with somebody else, or you're, handling an individual task, you like to read through things first. My mom does this. Like my mom is a banker, number one, builder second, which is good because if she didn't have any builder, and if you are on this call and you're a banker and you don't have builder in you, that's something that you either have to know as far as your third score, if it's a builder or not, because that's like your breakthrough marker, is taking action. because bankers, what they tend to do is gather all this information, but if they're not purposely charged, okay, as far as like their second score as like a builder, they're not going to take action. So they tend to get all this information and wait, procrastinate, hesitate to act. So they'll read through all the information first. I got to get all the information first before I can make a decision. Okay, I've got to analyze the situation before I can do something. Okay, that's their learning style. That's how they function best. So go do that, bankers, go do that, and then come back when you are ready to move. Okay. Self-esteem. I actually wrote down a few things. So self-esteem for bankers, you build your self-esteem when people value your information, when people value maybe the systems that you bring to the table, your knowledge. Okay. When you have knowledge, this is big. When you have knowledge, you're consistent. Okay. And people value your consistency in providing that information, providing that knowledge. And that gives you a higher sense of self-esteem and importance. Okay. You have a renewed sense of mission and purpose when people value your information. And that's also how you can regain influence over, resources or things or tools or whatever. Okay. Or the data that you're looking for. So this is like, there's a high correlation between like having high self-esteem and knowing how to create that for yourself and then achieving the results that you're looking for. Most of the time when you have a negative self-image, negative self-esteem about yourself, and you don't even know yourself enough to bounce back or move into that positive state, you're going to continue to do things to try to, like, you think you're trying to get a result, but what you're actually doing is you're trying to fill the gap and the void that's missing, because that gap in that void isn't to get a result that you were looking for. It's to make yourself feel better. It's to make yourself have a higher sense of value and importance. Okay, what I'm saying? Starting to maybe make sense. Okay, so that's how you build your self-esteem. Okay, but your biggest fear is the opposite. It's not being smart enough. It's not feeling smart. Okay, enough, or having the knowledge, or knowing, being in the know. Okay, knowing things. When you're in when you're in an environment or group setting or whatever the case is, when you feel that way, like, be mindful that you're feeling that way. Take yourself out of the picture for a second. It's just like, hey, it's not Abby. I'm emotionally attached to Abby and my feelings. This is the situation with this girl who doesn't understand how to get herself into a positive state. And this is what needs to be done. This is the action that needs to be taken. Go back to your learning style, go back to what moves you forward to increase your self-esteem. And at the end of the day, you control what you can control. You focus on what you can control. And it's not about what other people have to say or what other people have to do. Because I know a lot of this, we're talking about, well, we get our self-esteem from other people. No, at the end of the day, like, you control your self-esteem and you control the image that you have about yourself. It doesn't matter what other people do. When you focus on what other people are thinking or saying or feeling about you, you're still in a negative state and you haven't learned how to move into a positive state where you have that detachment from other people. Okay. So we move into our fears because we're attached to what other people think and say or do. We can move into a higher self-esteem and effectiveness and contribution when we understand that we have all the power, we have all the control, we have the access, and we can get the access, whatever that looks like. Okay. Your breakthrough is when you are consistent in gathering knowledge, being consistent and gathering knowledge. Okay. And then your defense mechanism this is actually kind of funny. So your defense mechanism is when you are, they call it, oh my gosh, aloof. I wrote it down. It's basically when you're aloof. Okay. I don't know if that makes sense. But let me try to break it down. So, oh my gosh, my battery's going to die. Hey, Al, if you are listening to this, can you come here real quick? Grab my charger. So your defense mechanism is to, like, basically withhold information. So you're going to make people feel aloof. And in other words, like, this isn't like the best example, but when I look it up, like, this is what it says. Aloof means like not forthcoming, not open. Like, half the time, it's not like you're purposely trying to make people feel dumb unless you actually don't like them. That's the best way that I can like maybe describe it, because you just aren't going, you're withholding everything. Like you're not going to be open. And when you do that, the way that you come off can make people feel dumb. Okay. I know this because my mom's watching this. I've already told her, but I told my mom, I was like, yes, mom, you totally do that. So it's just funny. But that's your defense mechanism. And it's kind of funny. I was telling her this, and maybe you guys can take this for what it is. The four defense mechanisms are: builder is to intimidate, innovator is to interrogate, merchant is to manipulate, and banker is to withhold information, be aloof. Okay. And with that, the three, so being aloof, I told my mom, I was like, you're the only, bankers are the only ones that like don't do anything. So all of us, merchants, builders, innovators, our defense mechanisms is we're like putting out energy, we're doing all these things. And like we're exerting information and we can exhaust ourselves. Okay. And bankers don't do anything. They're withholding all their energy. They're withholding all their knowledge. They're not showing any sign of emotion. So it's just kind of interesting. So, all right, guys, that is basically the breakdown. So you guys got pretty much everything: the characteristics of your person, how to move yourself to, a positive state, what puts you in a negative state. Just in other words, positive state is like when you're mature or maturing. Okay. A negative state is when you're still immature. You don't understand yourself. Your ability to contribute, how you can do that at the highest level, your learning style, how to increase and build your self-esteem. Okay. AKA your reward, how you feel about yourself, your biggest fears, your defense mechanisms, and then your breakthroughs. Okay. The last couple of things I just wanted to read off to you. All right, Alex, I don't know if you're busy. Oh, she's okay. Got you. All right. Well, this dies. Okay, got 9%. We got a little bit. Okay, we're almost done. I'm gonna read these couple things to you really quick because I wrote them down and I didn't really know how to put them. I didn't really know how to kind of add them in here. So I'm gonna read these to you, and hopefully some of these click and make sense. And you're like, wow, thank you so much for sharing. Okay. So builder, just to recap: action, results, power. Merchants, visionaries, long-term, love, relationships. Innovators, problem solving, assessment focused. Bankers, conservative, knowledge, and justice. Okay. So some of these things that I wanted to just share with you, and these are everybody. This isn't just one person or another. This is everybody. Okay. Everybody on this call, you inspire other people when you're in your positive state. And you're the most effective, and that's when you're the most effective and you're the most happy and fulfilled. You inspire other people when you're in your positive state and the most effective and happy. Okay. Doesn't matter what core value you are. Know that when you're in your positive state. Be mindful of your intentions and your motivation. Be mindful of why you are doing what you're doing. What is driving you to do whatever it is that you're doing. Okay. Because whatever that is, it's going to affect your results, good or bad, positive or negative. It's going to help you increase your self-esteem, or it's going to diminish it. It's going to help you, or it may hurt your team. It may hurt the people around you because you're trying to fill that void. So be mindful of what's driving you to make the decisions that you're making. Okay. Even if you get what you want in a negative state, okay, even if you get what you want when you're in a negative state, you could lose. Okay. At the same time, it's kind of like a self sabotage. You think that you're taking action as a builder to get a certain result, but what you're doing, you're not getting the result that's for the greater good. That's that's like backed by a purposely charged mission. Okay. You're doing it to fulfill and kind of fill that void of your self-esteem that you think that you are lacking. So when you do that, you may lose respect, you may lose love, you may lose influence, you may lose power. Okay. Just heads up. How quickly can you recognize when you're in a negative state and then flip? That's the goal. That's the whole goal of me giving you guys this information. Like, your ability to pivot and adapt and bounce back is critical to your success. Okay. Anytime that you want to connect with somebody, you want to be able to connect with their core value first. I don't care if you're a builder and you just don't do people, you do people, you're just telling yourself that, okay? Anytime you want to connect with somebody, okay, it's not just merchants, it's everybody. You want to be able to connect with their core value first. Okay, whatever you are not, so your fourth core value, okay, or even your third, you must delegate it or double down on it. So if my core value is a builder, okay, I either need to get real about my action taking, okay, when I'm in a negative state or I'm trying to build my self-esteem or whatever, or I need to delegate it out to somebody so we can create results towards the greater mission. Cool. Hold on, guys. I really want to give this to you. I'm gonna see if my charger's in here. You guys saw me on the floor and I just almost fell on my face. Hold on. Okay, I thought the backpack was downstairs, but we are good. Hold on. Okay. All right. The last couple ones here. Okay, good. We're good. The last couple ones here is something is bothering you in your first core, or sorry, your first score. If something is bothering you in your first score, it may hinder you from capitalizing on your other scores from your second score. Okay. So if you're a merchant and you value relationships, but a relationship is, off in your life that means something to you, that will be the only thing that you focus on, or it could be. You need to learn how to bounce back. You need to learn how to move on, do things that are productive, as you knowing that you can sort through that problem, knowing that that relationship will thrive if it's meant to thrive because of the effort that you're putting in. Or, maybe it's not because the other person just isn't giving a rat's what about you, and that's just something you have to face. Okay. But I know that because I do that. Okay. So if something's bothering you in your first score, it can hinder you from capitalizing on your other score. And when you combine the two, that's when you can be very effective in your day-to-day life. So it's not about just one score. You've got to kind of bring your two scores together so that they're working in harmony, that they're working, in sync with each other, so that both are benefiting from one another. So you can be the most effective, highest level possible. Last couple, every problem can be solved if people just knew each other. Okay. Every problem can be solved if people just understood each other, their core values. What gives them a sense of importance? What makes them feel valued? Go back to the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The whole book talks about how people crave to be appreciated, crave to be needed, to be felt important. But everybody's sense of important is different. That's these core values. So understanding each other would solve every problem. Okay. It requires people to mature and understand themselves and connect with other people through what motivates them. Okay. And the last thing that I wrote down is you've got to be fully sold on what you're doing. You have to be sold out on what you are doing. I promise you guys have heard this before. If you don't believe in something, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to show up to these calls. You're not going to prospect every day. You're not going to, take the necessary action that's going to move the ball forward. You're just not. You've got to get real about what does success and results mean to you. You have to know that, because you could know yourself and what moves you, but if you don't know what you're moving towards and that making that connection, you're just going to find yourself back in this vicious cycle of building your self-esteem, making yourself feel better because you're letting the world hurt you again. You're letting other people bring you down. You're letting the outside noise get to you again and how you feel about yourself, tainting your self-image. Okay. So that is what I've got for you guys. I am going to end the call. I might actually end the recording.